Today, we wanted to spend some time talking about the concept of discipleship. All right? Discipleship. And so before we even get into the content and what we actually want to talk about, I just want to be really transparent with you guys. We talked about how tonight is our vision night. And tonight, we're going to be talking a lot about community. We're going to be showing the land and the building and just these really exciting things. But the truth is we don't want it to confuse you guys as to what the core is of who we are and what we do, and that is discipleship. We are called to be disciples, to make disciples, and we will never, ever, ever stray from that central focus. And so just honestly, I want to be really clear. If you're looking for a church that gives you all the fancy, exciting things and the best worship and the best teaching and all that stuff, and that's the focus, you're in the wrong place. Because what we are about is teaching and equipping disciples of Jesus Christ. And that will never change. So we wanted to spend time today talking about that, making sure that we see the holistic picture of what God is doing in and through and around us. And so let's go ahead and jump on in. So when we talk about discipleship, maybe what does that mean to you? Because first off, I think discipleship is a very religious word. It's a very churchy word. That's not something we use in our modern day vernacular anywhere else, right? And I think additionally, for those who have maybe been in the church realm for a while, I think you've probably seen the word discipleship attached to like a class or maybe like a program of some kind. You can take a discipleship program. And so we just want to be abundantly clear what it is. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that come to mind. One is to be a true follower of Jesus. Mm-hmm. I say true follower because I, admittedly, for too much of my life, I would live my life and have my plans, and I would ask Jesus to just kind of follow me and bless my plans. And when we talk about discipleship here, and being a true follower of Jesus Christ, we're talking about that we are truly giving all that we are. Our whole life is truly dedicated to Him and following Him, to knowing Him more, to understanding who He is and therefore who we are to be more and more like Him. Mm-hmm. So that's the first piece of it, which we can delve into even more. But the second piece of it, just kind of two parts, is that we are to then make disciples as well. So as a follower of Him, I also want to make sure that I am leading others to follow Him as well. And so there's this, I'm submitting all that I am to Him. I am following Him with all that I have. And I'm also trying to get others to do the same.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first one. So when we talk about being a true follower of Jesus, I think you've probably heard that before, right? Like we're supposed to follow Jesus. But I want you to really just take a moment and maybe this week, read through one of the gospel accounts. And I want you to seriously take note of the things that Jesus did, the things that Jesus said, how Jesus thought, the way that He treated people. I want you to seriously take note every moment of every day what He was up to and what He found to be most important. And then I want you to backtrack and I want you to survey your everyday, your moment by moment. And I want you to see if you're truly doing the things that Jesus did and saying the things that Jesus said. Because the truth of the matter is, even our best efforts, we're gonna fall short in this. But for a lot of us, we don't even realize that this is the call on our lives. We don't even realize that actually this is about following Jesus. It's not about coming to church on Sunday. It's not about being convenient, right? This is about giving everything you have to follow Him. And the truth is Jesus makes this abundantly clear. Abundantly clear. Matthew 16:24, He says, whoever wants to be my disciple. Hey, do you want to follow me? You want to be my disciple? Here's what you got to do. Deny yourselves, pick up your cross, and follow me. So in other words, it's going to be costly. In fact, it's going to cost you everything. In fact, the very next thing Jesus says is, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, But whoever wants to lose their life for me will find it. In other words, I want you to lay down everything that you are and everything that you have and follow me. And so we have to understand this is all of our lives wrapped up and centered around Jesus. And that's what it actually means to be a disciple. Deny yourselves. Like, think about that. Deny your desires, deny your thoughts, deny your purposes and your plans and your convenience, and follow me. That's what he says.
Yeah, when we were talking through this, and really trying to break this down, because this cannot be more important of a message. Dustin just said, okay, so what does being a disciple mean to you? And we're walking along outside. It was too cold, by the way. And we're just walking along, and I just pondered it, and I said, it's my whole life. Being a disciple, it has to do with my entire life. Now, that, it's easy to say these things, but what I really want to grab hold of today, because we talk about discipleship regularly here. What I really want to grab hold of is this is real. This is real life, application of these things. When I wake up in the morning, I want my thoughts, my initial first thoughts, to be on him. It's not always by any stretch. But I want that to be my desire when I wake up in the morning is to have him on my mind. That I want to have time with him. That I want to just spend time talking to him. Just listening to him. Just kind of basking there in his presence. I want to long for that as soon as I wake up. As I decide my day and plan out my day, I want my priority literally to be on him. How much do we try to take control of our time? How much do we like to take control of all of our resources and our energy? But what we're called to is to truly follow him. Lord, what do you want to do with my time? What do you want to do with my resources and my energy? Because God, I have given my life to you. You've given yours to me. And in return, the deal here is I'm giving my life back to you. What does that mean? That means every day I want to be postured in a way where he is able to use me to do whatever he wants. And I'm telling you guys, it's so fulfilling. There's so much more peace that you will experience in your life when you stop trying to control everything and you give it to him and say, Lord, I don't even know what you want to do with me today, but throughout the day, I'm going to try my best to posture myself in a way that when I walk by people, that if you have something for me to do, I want to do it. So I want to give everything to him.
I find it interesting. I've even heard teachings where people will talk about the difference of being a Christian and being a disciple as if the two are separated. And the truth of the matter is that they're the same thing. They're mutually exclusive. In fact, the term Christian, originally in the early centuries, was when Romans and people in the surrounding region would see followers of Jesus, the things that they're doing, the things that they were saying, they would call them a Christian because that means little Christ. In other words, that's like a little Jesus walking around. So think about it. That's the same exact thing as being a disciple. We are to follow Jesus in all that we do. We're to imitate him and reflect him. And so we need to make sure to understand, if we have truly made Jesus Lord of our lives, that means we are a disciple. And that must mean how we move forward is going to be different. There are going to be some changes, right?
Absolutely. And that's why we've gone through series like the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Like a very practical series. But the reason is that time is one of those things that we struggle to let go of. Right? We always talk about, and we talk about this, we've done this series twice now, but it's just so prevalent in our world today that we can't stop long enough and get out of our own way to let him speak and do what he wants to do. And so that's just a real thing that we've got to say, you know what? the excuse of I'm too busy to go to something that will draw me closer to him, that will allow me to connect with other believers, that will put me in a place for him to do what he wants me to do. Listen, like, I don't want to have that excuse in my life, period. If I'm saying I'm too busy to do something that he wants me to do, I've got to check myself. Yeah. And so I keep harping on the time thing, but I just feel like it's such an important thing.
Yeah, I hope you're sensing the passion, because we feel so strongly about this. We could talk forever just about that. But let's take a moment and talk about what it means to make disciples of Jesus, because that is the second piece that you mentioned. And the truth is if we are going to be like Jesus, then we will be intentional about making disciples. Yeah. In many ways, that's what he gave his ministry to, his life to, that we read about in the Gospels, is making disciples. So I think in many ways, we've made this a little bit harder than it really is in reality. It's simply building relationships and giving your life to people in a way that points to Jesus. It really is that simple. And I think we've complicated it because we're like, well, I got to make sure all my stuff is in order. I got to make sure that I don't have any problems. I got to make sure I know everything within the Bible so I can answer all the questions. And you have to go through this checklist. But each and every one of us, we are called to make disciples of Jesus. And so maybe talk about the simplification of that.
Yeah, each and every one of us are called to this. Grab hold of that. Like each one of us is called to this. But, so making disciples, I do think this is one of those things that we struggle with, because we do disqualify ourselves. We see ourselves as, just not at a place to be able to do it. We want to simplify this today. Now you have to be intentional with it, but we also want to simplify this. So many things in life, that lead to success, even, regardless of what realm you're talking about, are simple. We make things more complicated in life than they need to be. It doesn't mean it's easy, but they are simple. So we are simply talking about getting with other people, hanging out with them, having fun, spending time with one another, and through that, pointing people to Christ. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. So I'd like for you actually to share a little bit of how you've done this, because I know there's a couple different relationships that you've been kind of walking alongside. And, as we were talking through this, I think it was really just a really beautiful way of sharing, how you've approached this with the intentional steps that you took, but also how simple it really is.
Well, as always, we have to go back to Jesus and just watch the things that he did. Jesus didn't complicate this. He simply gave people his time and his attention. He ate meals with them, and he lived life with them. And then he showed them the way to live and how they can flourish within it, and the way to see the world and the people within it. He did this over the course of a long period of time, right? And even Jesus himself spent 3 years with the disciples that we know of. And yet by the end of those 3 years, they denied him, and they ran for the hills when he was in trouble. In other words, it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of patience. But for me, it really is as simple as giving people my time and my attention genuinely. So when I'm with people, I'm not simultaneously scrolling on the phone, and I'm not simultaneously texting people. I'm giving people my time and my attention. I'm listening to their hurts and their pains. We're eating meals together. And for me, it's about whatever's going on in their life, how can I sprinkle in a little Jesus? How can I point them that way? Yeah. For those that don't know him, right? How can I give them the principles that can push them in that direction? And of course, the other big thing is, how are we modeling the Christ-like nature in front of these people? So when we're hanging out with people and maybe we're confronted with something, are we acting with patience and kindness and goodness? Or are we getting angry and doing what everybody else does? Are we living a life that models it in front of them? And just as we do those things over years and years and years, the truth is for a lot of us, this is going to take decades with people. We might spend our entire lifetimes with people until they come to know Jesus for themselves. But that's fine. That's what faithfulness is about. We continue to stay consistent and steady. And so whoever it is, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, give them your time, your attention, Be intentional about what you're doing in front of them, the things that you're saying, and the places that you're pointing them towards. And that's where you'll see the difference.
Yeah, so something that you mentioned that I want to stress is that this is going to take time and it's going to require patience. I feel like this ties back even to our last series where we want things now. We want answers. Give me the answer. Give me the bullet points. Keep it concise. In the same way, through relationships, I feel like we want to see results. Yeah. Give me results. Am I doing enough? I struggle with this. I talked to you about that. I struggle with, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? But being patient, even through our relationships, to give it the time it requires, to let God continue through you to help shape and mold and guide is very important. And I think that's in our culture today. We struggle with that a little bit. Is like we want to see results, but we've got to stay patient and just keep walking and following the Holy Spirit as he guides subtly and sometimes more directly through conversations that, and this is where following him is important, because we must first follow him so that we can guide as we talk to others and have relationships with others, that as things come up in life that are tough, having his knowledge to guide in those moments is necessary. That we're not just going off of what we feel in the moment, but that we are truly following him, and therefore through our relationships, we're able to show godly characteristics, and that we're able to share godly wisdom through these relationships. Because ultimately, we do this, right? We live together with others. Life stuff happens, and sometimes we can just let them carry on and go, rant on, and just miss an opportunity to guide them in a godly kind of way. Sometimes relationships are tough, right? Like people can be challenging, and we don't all see things the same way. And so as we're having these relationships, that as something comes up that might trigger me, that I might want to jump to be defensive about, that's not a godly characteristic that I want to model and through that relationship, but that in those moments, I'm able to show something different in a godlike way, that they would expect someone to lash back out, but now they're seeing a gentleness, they're seeing a patience, they're seeing humility like they normally don't see through other people, but it's a godlike characteristic or way that I'm carrying myself, that I'm being molded, and therefore they're seeing that modeled in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move into I think an important part of this conversation, and that is, I mentioned at the beginning, I think a lot of us are confused about discipleship, what it is and how we enter into it. I think in many ways we've kind of lost our way.
Yes, so how have we done that? How have we lost our way when it comes to this discipleship thing? Because I feel like this has been something we've been trying to steer back toward for 2 years now. Yeah. It's like shifting directions in a big old massive cruise ship where it's just, slowly turning this thing, because it goes against what's been in place really my whole life. Yeah. So how have we lost it?
Well, I think there are two things that come to mind initially. The first one is what I call the Sunday mentality. That's right. Where we have made the church all about a day, and really more specifically, all about an event within that day. And in fact, if you ask many people today, if they're Christians, they will probably respond, sure, I go to church on Sunday. That's what we think it means to be a Christian. And so what we've done in the process is we have stripped the daily call of following Jesus right out of our lives. It's no longer about loving others and serving others and teaching others and forgiving others every moment of every day. It's simply about going to a church service.
Yeah, and when we're talking about we're talking about really our church culture over the past however many decades now, that we have spent so much time and energy toward preparing for a Sunday service. And that's been the focus, that's been the priority. And so that's what we're trying to shift here, is away from that in that daily walk, which you guys, if you've been coming, have heard us talk about over and over again. But it's one of those things that we've got to continue to work toward because we've been doing it a different way our whole lives.
Yeah. And the truth is, we as the church have fed right into this. Yeah. Most church strategies, especially here in the western part of the world, revolves completely around Sunday attendance, right? Just get them to church on Sunday, and then everything filters from there. Then we can love them. Then we can serve them. Then we can teach them. And so again, we've stripped like the personal, individual ministry and responsibility right out of our lives. In fact, when we talk about evangelism now, it's like, well, let's just invite them to church. No, evangelism is telling them the good news of Jesus Christ and what that means for them. And that's a responsibility for each one of us to go out into our particular world and to do that. And so sadly, as a response to this, what we have is we have a culture of Christians that are shallow in their relationship with Jesus because all they have is Sunday, and they're aimless in their true purpose because they're not doing anything from Monday through Saturday that has to do with the kingdom of God. And so again, like you said, it's like we're turning this huge cruise ship around, but this is vitally important. Again, let's go back to the beginning. This is about following Jesus every moment of every day. Sundays is a beautiful thing. And every weekend I say, man, let's not take this for granted that we get to worship together and grow together. But this is one little piece of what we do. Frankly, it's much more important what we're doing every other moment throughout the week.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I take accountability for, early on, like we were feeding into it ourselves, right? Like we were feeding into this very thing ourselves. And so we're trying to shift,
we still do today. I mean, we're still learning and growing. And we'll even have conversations where it's like, why are we doing that? Why do we make that decision? Why do we have that priority when in reality, we're feeding right into this system? And so it's just something we're going to together. Communally, we're going to have to head in the right direction. The other thing that comes to mind is I think that in the ways that we teach and the things that we tell people, we've made this very salvation-centric type of doctrine where it's all about simply getting people to say, I believe in Jesus. Go ahead and check that box, and then let's get to the next person. And that has become our purpose in many ways as the church, right? Let's say the prayer, let's raise the hand, and then let's get on to the next person. Meanwhile, we've done nothing to tell them what that now means for their lives. And so we have to understand, to say that Jesus is Lord of my life, to say that I now follow him, is to say everything about my life has changed. My thoughts and my priorities, my purpose, everything has changed. That's the concept of repentance, is to turn from your ways of thinking and to think like Jesus, which is radically different from how you and I naturally think. And so we have to change this theology and this doctrine that we often teach, because by simply getting people to try to recite a prayer and kind of move on, we're acting as if the whole point of life is going to heaven, when in reality, the whole purpose of life is bringing heaven to earth. That's our purpose. That's our mission. And so we have to put these things together to make sure we're on the right track.
There you go. Yeah, so obviously we want to introduce, as many as we possibly can to him. He there are honestly so many that are living life without any hope, and he is our hope. And so it's up to us to share that, to share the good news of who he is and what he's done. But we've just fallen flat, at that point. And we want to make sure that we are truly following him every day. So how do we do this? How do we do this collectively, all of us together?
Yeah, so we wanted to spend some time here at the end talking about our life groups, because our life groups is really where we believe discipleship is happening. Every moment of every day, from house to house, from person to person. That's where discipleship is happening. So let me just be, I've said this before, but I want to be abundantly clear about this. Sorry, Jay, I just screwed that up. We're good? So let me
flick it like that.
Yeah. Let me be abundantly clear about this. Listen, life groups are not a program within the church.
Right.
all right? I think oftentimes people view these groups as like, oh, this is an addition to the church. And so it's kind of optional if I kind of want to go deeper into things. No, life groups are the church. That's where relationships are being built. That's where growth is occurring. That's where needs are being met. That's where wounds are being healed. That's where sins are being confessed. That's where the good stuff is happening. And so I just want to make it clear, when you think about Bridge Church, that's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about the life groups that are meeting from house to house. I don't want you to think about a great Sunday experience and the band and the teaching. That adds value for sure. I want you to think about the people who are meeting from house to house, the discipleship, the growth that is happening. Again, this is what we see from Jesus.
Yes, and we see this the very first church as well, as they lived life together truly. They came together. They just everyone put together, generously, selflessly living life together. It says that to the point that no one had a need because everyone took care of each other. Is that not beautiful? Like, how amazing is that? So I will say, though, this is one of the things, and tonight, like we talked about, we're going to get into community, and I can't wait to do that. Because, through this process, to hear some of the testimonies of what the church has done and how the church has served already, the thing that we kept coming to was community. Yeah. And that is, it was music to my ears, because that is what it should be. Listen, connection and community is what is scarce in our world today. And when we go through stuff, the first thing that our natural instinct is to do is to isolate and remove ourselves from, when in all reality, the very thing we need is to lean into our community. Yeah. So community is vital, it's important, it's a must, it's a need. Yeah. So we want everyone to be in life group. In fact, we want life group to be more than what we see on a Sunday service. We want life groups to be heavily attended more so than we have on Sundays, because that's what we believe should be our priority. And life groups is one of those things that, like everything else, we are trying to make sure that we are doing our very best to do exactly that we are discipling well through life groups. And I can tell you that for me personally, being in life group does so much for me every single week. I can't, you got something?
Yeah, well, I was just about to say, life group is not a once a week meeting. And we even get caught up in thinking that. Life group is not about meeting every Thursday night to eat a meal and talk about Jesus. That's beautiful. But life group is living everyday life with one another. It's about encouraging one another and praying for one another and serving with one another. It's literally your entire life lived hand in hand with other people.
Yeah, and it's a prime example. We talked about this in preparation. Is that that is what we're working toward. Yeah. Right. So like, if you're going to life group right now and you're like, that's not my experience. Well, admittedly, right now it's not for me either. In some cases, it's a few days a week, or, some relationships, are there, but we're working more and more toward it. So I just want you to know, if you're sitting and you're like, I go to life group, but it is once a week. That is what we're working more and more toward. And listen, like, you're part of this. Yeah. Help us to do that. Live life together. Live in community. Be accountable to one another. Be there for one another more so on a daily basis than just coming together once a week.
Yeah, your life group leader can't make you live everyday life with the people in your group. It takes every one of us to be a part of that change and moving forward. So let's do that.
We won't have any more life group leaders if we try that. We're exhausted.
Yeah. So again. We got one of them. All right. So we have a really clear vision with life groups, guys. And that's why we talk often about this. We want to make it really clear. Like Devin said, we firmly believe our life groups will be much larger than our Sunday gatherings. We believe that the vast majority of people will go to a life group way before they'll step into our building. We believe that we're gonna have people who are baptized in our backyards and in our bathtubs from house to house. We believe these things are gonna happen. But it's gonna take all of us collectively understanding what the mission is and how we can be a part of that. And so that's what we're inviting you guys into, each and every one of you guys. Get plugged into this, be a part of the change so that we can truly disciple well and live in community with one another.
Yeah, and we're already, again, we're working in this direction. So, some of this, we have had baptisms in bathtubs, and, God is doing these things. So we are just continuing to do more and more and lean more and more to it. I don't know about you guys, but to get a neighbor of mine to come to my house with a couple friends is going to be a lot easier than having them walk through these doors for the first time and being greeted by a crowd of people they're going to be so intimidated by. But man, if they come to my house, eat some food with us, hang out, laugh, chat, start some conversation, now they've got more relationships that they have in their lives. They're getting to know more people. Man, walking through these doors with 6 other couple friends is going to be a lot easier than just walking through by themselves. So this is something we continue to stress because it's that important.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up this way. So tonight, we're going to be talking about some really exciting stuff. And we're going to be leaning really heavily into community. We're going to talk about our land and our building. It's going to be amazing. But this is the core of who we are and what we do.
Yep.
We are disciples who are called to make disciples. And I also want to be clear that what we're talking about today does not conflict with what we're going to be talking about tonight. What we're trying to do is present a holistic vision of who we are. And so all of this is coming together to make the community that God has called us to bring his kingdom to earth. That's what we're called to do. And so all of this comes together to make that happen.